It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Before Falcon rockets landed themselves or billionaires launched themselves into orbit, there was the X-15, a sleek, black rocket plane that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in aviation and spaceflight. In the late 1950s and throughout the 1960s, the X-15 was the fastest, highest-flying aircraft ever built. It didn't just break speed records, it reached the edge of space, earned pilots their astronaut wings, and laid the technological groundwork for everything from the Space Shuttle to today's space tourism ventures. At a glance, the X-15 didn't look like any plane you've seen before. It was long, narrow, jet black, and sharp-edged, more like a dart than a traditional aircraft. Its skin was made of a Conal X, a nickel alloy designed to withstand the scorching temperatures of high-speed flight through the upper atmosphere. It didn't take off from a runway, it was carried to altitude by a modified B-52 bomber, then dropped like a bomb at around 45,000 feet. Seconds later, the pilot would ignite the XLR-99 rocket engine, producing over 57,000 pounds of thrust, propelling the aircraft to Mach 6.7, that's more than 4,500 miles per hour. The X-15 wasn't just a test aircraft, it was a flying laboratory. Every flight was an experiment. It carried sensors, cameras, and instruments to collect data on aerodynamic heating, stability at hypersonic speeds, and atmospheric re-entry, all long before humans ever orbited Earth. Pilots flew the X-15 into realms no aircraft had ever gone before, the mesosphere and thermosphere, reaching altitudes as high as 354,200 feet, about 67 miles up. That's above the Kármán line, which is internationally recognized as the boundary of space. The pilots who flew the X-15 were more than just skilled aviators, they were test pilots, engineers, and astronauts in waiting. Names like Neil Armstrong, Joe Walker, Scott Crossfield, and William Pete Knight belong on the short list of people who truly pushed the boundaries of flight. Neil Armstrong, in particular, honed the skills he would later use to land the Apollo 11 lunar module by flying the X-15 in difficult, edge-of-envelope conditions. One of his X-15 flights even bounced off the atmosphere and glided over 400 miles downrange, not the plan, but a testament to how extreme these missions could get. Each flight posed immense challenges. The aircraft could reach temperatures of 1,200 degrees Fahrenheit, 650 degrees Celsius, on its outer surface. The cockpit was a tiny pressure-sealed chamber, barely large enough to accommodate the pilot, who wore a full-body pressure suit. Acceleration pushed pilots back into their seats, and the transition from air-breathing flight to the vacuum of near space was not just dramatic, but disorienting. Navigation was tricky, and re-entry had to be precisely calculated. Unlike a space capsule with a parachute, the X-15 had to glide back and land like a conventional aircraft, using no landing gear, just metal skids. But what made the X-15 truly remarkable was what it taught us. It was the first program to gather real-world data on hypersonic flight, aerodynamic heating, and re-entry stress, essential knowledge for developing both ballistic missiles and human spaceflight vehicles. It also tested control systems, materials science, and fuel technologies that would later be used in programs like Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo. In fact, many of NASA's key engineers and astronauts either worked on the X-15 or learned from its data. The X-15 program ran from 1959 to 1968, with 199 missions flown in total. Of those, 13 flights exceeded 50 miles in altitude, the threshold used by the US Air Force to award astronaut wings. In 2005, NASA officially recognized these X-15 pilots as astronauts, finally giving them the honor they deserved. But not every flight ended safely. In 1967, pilot Michael Adams was killed when his X-15 entered a spin at the edge of space and broke apart during descent. He was later posthumously awarded astronaut wings, and his death served as a stark reminder of the risks taken in the pursuit of discovery. Despite the dangers, the X-15's legacy is profound. It helped prove that winged spacecraft could survive re-entry and land safely, a concept later realized with the Space Shuttle. It also demonstrated the feasibility of reaction control systems, small thrusters used to orient spacecraft in space, something every modern spacecraft still relies on. And perhaps most importantly, it showed what could be achieved through raw engineering, courage, and the relentless drive to go faster and higher. What's fascinating is how futuristic the X-15 still seems today. 60 years later, most aircraft still don't fly as fast or as high. Modern hypersonic programs, like NASA's X-43, X-51, or even military projects under DARPA, owe a debt to the X-15. Even private companies exploring suborbital flight, like Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic, are building on ideas the X-15 pioneered. In fact, the concept of launching a spacecraft from a carrier aircraft at high altitude, as Virgin Galactic does, is almost directly borrowed from the X-15's launch method. If the X-15 were unveiled today, it would still turn heads, not just for its performance, but for what it represents: the spirit of exploration, the willingness to take risks in the name of progress, and the drive to push beyond our limits. It didn't carry satellites or tourists or cargo. It carried questions and brought back answers. In the age of billion-dollar launches and orbital mega-constellations, it's easy to overlook the achievements of that sleek black rocket plane that once scratched the edge of space. But the truth is, without the X-15, our path to the moon and beyond might have taken much longer.